Shalom. I'm going to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father in the ancient Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name of the only God Son. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and salutations to the elect of Israel, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, or the so-called blacks, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Americans, as well as your Israelite foreigners that may look like the other nations but believe this truth. This is Brother Shakal, here with a video lesson on all the prophecies of war concerning the Third Woe, World War III, in the so-called Middle East, the Valley of Yehoshaphat, the Fertile Crescent, the Levant, also known as, it says in 2 Ezra 15, the horrible vision from the east, because that is the major scene of destruction from Yehovah Shemioshad, is over there again in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, Yehoshaphat in the Hebrew, meaning the Most High, Yahweh's judgment. Shalom Alak Baran Yesharallah, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shabbat, Shalom Alak, Shalom beloved. I got some information basically on the wars are merging together into the conflict that the scriptures speak about in the prophecies between Russia, Iran, and all the nations coming up against Babylon, which is America. The small hats being allied with America, the least of the flock is the small hats. Jeremiah 49, Jeremiah 50. And something recently happened between so Iran's being dragged into the Ukraine and in Russian war, which we know that Ezekiel 38, if you get that little woman, that Ezekiel 38, Gog Magog is Russia, and Persia is Iran. I'm going to turn this around so you can see what I'm reading. Ukraine directly impacted Iran's involvement in the broader war by executing long-range drone strikes on sanctioned cargo vessels and military supply lines in the Caspian Sea, which were moving shipments between Iran and Russia. And so, and then we'll keep reading to get more details. On July 25th, 2026, Ukrainian security service SBU drones targeted assets in the northern Caspian Sea, hitting a Russian missile boat called Monia and cargo ships used for military logistics. An Iranian commercial vessel was struck during the operation, resulting in the death of one civilian sailor. And so Ukraine bringing shots on Iran, pretty much dragging them into this war. And Russia and Iran are already military, politically, economically allied. Again, Ezekiel the 38th chapter. It says President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president, and Ukrainian officials defended the actions, noting that Tehran remains an active accomplice by supplying military hardware and fueling Moscow's invasion. And so Yahweh Shah is causing is doing is causing his prophecies to come to pass. He's doing his word and his will in the earth, amassing the heathen to war. Um, it's going exactly how the scriptures say. Uh, Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh Bashmiel Shah. And as the heart in the Hebrew is lab, which means the mind, and as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. And so, it's not only the small hats versus Iran and Russia versus Ukraine, but now it's Russia and Russia back in Iran. Now it's also Ukraine versus Iran. And then you also got behind the scenes in with Russia, North Korea, China, as well as Iran, backing up Russia. And so, want to get some information on that. And I see where the precepts Malak to water. I'm gonna have to get some of those. The water. This is from Fox News titled China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea form axis of aggressors that could overwhelm U.S. book warrants. Khan, the third woe is definitely coming quickly. We hear. Khan. Call hello Yehovah Shmiel Shah Bashim Kodash. Couldn't be any more confirmation. And so, now they're going to go into it. Now, I don't need to read too much on this. To have more stuff, information I want to bring out as well. Some articles that Akim sent. But always looking into what's going on in these in the global wars, and not just taking it by face value, the propaganda of evil E, but even to the point. It says, and this is a quote, I just got back from a couple weeks in Ukraine, and when I'm sitting in Ukraine, it's really obvious to me that Ukraine is fighting Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China. Retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery, one of the book's 3 authors, told Fox News Digital. And so, someone who has a first-hand account can see that what's really going on in the war is not just Russia and Ukraine. And so Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is amassing all the nations against each other, and is going exactly how the prophecies say. And here's the point. It says Montgomery pointed to North Korean ammunition and troops, Iranian drones and production expertise, and Chinese economic and technological support for Moscow. And so, it's bringing forth the different alliances of the third woe, where in Iran is a major one prophetically, Ezekiel 38, but it is a brother put up in Jeremiah 59, which I'm going to read this one right now. That Russia is backing these different heathen nations And eventually they're all going to shoot their missiles on America, on Babylon, which is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. For lo, I will raise, and this is from Bayan Yesharallah, 144 to Wada. Jeremiah 59, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon. Again, America is Babylon in the prophetic scriptures. Isaiah 13, Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Isaiah 14, also known as the daughter of Babylon, Isaiah 47, Psalms 137, even says it in Jeremiah 50, I think it is the daughter of Babylon. Says that's the scene of where the great captivity of us Israelites, all hell breaking loose, and the great destruction by nuclear missiles, which will be the lake of fire, and then the great deliverance, when the Lord Yahushua comes back to beam up the elect, and they would ascend up to heaven in the fathership, the main so-called UFO, and our enemies will behold us. With Jeremiah 59, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. In this prophecy, the north country represents Russia. And they shall set themselves in array against her. And so, our power, Yehovah Shem Yahushua, is stirring up the nations against America. And that's why you see the alliance molding into the small hats in America, the small hats in Babylon the Great, against everyone else. And Ukraine seems to be thrown in that mix right now too, along with the small hats in America. But you got North Korea and China backing up Russia in its war efforts against the West. And so Jeremiah 59 is the end. That's the end of it, if you will. That's where it's going. So reading on, from thence she shall be taken, their arrows, which the nuclear missiles. That's talking about the nuclear missiles, and that's why China, North Korea, they're flexing their missiles, and Iran is obviously working on its nuclear arsenal, which has Trump heated. And so, because this war will be burning in flames and fuel of fire. Isaiah 9 and 5. War through nuclear missiles. Apostle John heard it. Revelation the 9th chapter. The 200,000 nuclear warheads to the mouths of lions, out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. They deleted third part of men, the sons of the wicked, the Edomites. The Edomites will be here at the end, future time of destruction, and the missiles even looked like serpents, and they had heads which were warheads. So the scriptures really get in depth. I mean, it literally says everything that's going on. And so, those that are getting weak and not staying diligent, Yehovah Shmuel Shah is giving everything. It's all on the table. It doesn't matter if you want to, if you put in that work, really, for the elect. But as we can see, all the prophecies are coming to pass. So our efforts are being rewarded. And we continue to be it's a parable of the unprofitable servants, waiting our hope for salvation. But reading on, let's read that again. From the article, it says Montgomery pointed to North Korean ammunition and troops, Iranian drones and production expertise, and Chinese economic and technological support for Moscow. So retired Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery said that it's not just Russian-Ukraine war. It's Russia backed with Iran, China, and North Korea against Ukraine. And America's backing Ukraine. America's backing the small hats. And Ukraine has just bombed Iran. Iran being a casualty, and it's becoming a threat. Or it's looked at as a threat to the West. So it's all, the prophecies are all merging together. They're coming to pass. Kol ho Yehovah Shmil Shabbat Shemukawadash. Now, this is one by, and you probably seen this one. I think the brother put it up in the chat. This is and again, the water for the precepts is much needed. We're gonna get all of these. This is from The Guardian, titled Russian Missile Destroys U.S. Firm's Kiev Drone Factory. Strike on terminal autonomy plant appears to be the first time in the war that Moscow has targeted a U.S. defense company. And so, Russia is not afraid of America. It has the largest nuclear arsenal, and prophecies coming to pass. And so, Russia's striking America, not the land, but U.S. bases, or rather, it's like the drone factories, and then Ukraine has struck Iran, and so as the small hats are at war with Iran, America's backing the small hats. Ukraine is at war with Russia. Iran is joined with Russia. Ezekiel 38. The wars are merged together into the third woe, the third world war in prophecy. As the brother put it up, I'll read it again. I'll read this one. I didn't read this yet, but Revelation 11 and 14 from the beloved brother by Nesharallah. The second woe is past, World War II, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And that's going to end up with the nuclear mushroom cloud, the nuclear missiles destroying America. It's going to start with the boots on the ground, the drones, the tanks. As it says in Ezekiel 38, the horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, with a company with shields, all of them handling swords. The sword in its perfection is the missiles. And so we're at the time entering into the third woe. And it's only a matter of time until the draft. The small hats and Yehovah Shmil Ratazah little one. I do a separate lesson on this. Going into a little deeper look on the war draft that the small hats have enacted, and that Babylon's America's gonna follow suit pretty much, because they're already talking about a draft. But as we know, America is on a leash and a ball and chain to the small hats, as the prophecy says, the leash of the flock shall draw them out. So the small hats are drawing out America into this war, and so America, the United States of Israel, as people call it, is going to send the troops and draft them to the Middle East, so-called Middle East, the land barren and desolate, Saudi Arabian desert, Joel 2 and 20. and the Arab nation is going to get involved, and America is going to be the scene of destruction with the missiles. But then the Lord Yahushua will also, pursuing the second Exodus 13, annihilate all the forces, the armies in the in the in our land, in the surrounding areas in the Middle East right now, and that are being amassed there and will continue to be amassed there. As the brother put up uh, on Yahweh Bahasham Yahushua gathering the heathen to the valley of Yehoshaphat. But I want to read some of this before I get that. It's from the Guardian titled, reading on, a drone factory in Kiev, which is Ukraine, destroyed by a Russian ballistic missile on Friday, was owned by a U.S. corporation registered in Delaware in what appears to be the first time Moscow has targeted a U.S. defense company in a conflict. Terminal Autonomy makes precision deep strike drones with guidance systems that are resistant to Russian jamming signals, according to a person familiar with the company. The phrase terminal autonomy refers to the final phase of a kamikaze drone attack in which AI takes over control of the weapon after the defending force jams radio waves or mobile service. So AI is getting in on the war. That's how you know the spirit of Yehovah Shah is getting in there. Because the Lord's allowing these devils, is giving these devils the left-handed wisdom so that they can get on the weapons, bring more war. State records show that the corporation was registered in Isaiah 54:16. Yahweh Shah created a smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, make it a weapon for his work, and the waster to destroy. So the Lord brought forth these, we went into that camp recently, the Abraham Esau and the Robert Oppenheimers, the nuclear physicists, the modern day blacksmiths, and to bring forth the waster, the nuclear missile. And so, in all these weapons, our power Yehovah Shem Yoshua is perfecting the sword. And that requires technology. Because that's the prophecies mentioned, the missiles, the fire that burns behind them, the propellant fire, the flame that devoured before it, when it hits the nuclear destruction, arrows shot into the ends of the world, the heavens departing as a scroll, the lake of fire, the besom of destruction, meaning the broom sweeping across America. Ain't no ancient weapons could do stuff like that. And so it's really Esau's left-handed wisdom and technology that's going to bring upon him his own destruction. The sword shall be bathed in heaven and come down upon Idumea. Reading on, state records show that the corporation was registered in Delaware in 2023. The company's website says we deploy AI-guided loitering munitions and precision munitions, which are already in active service against enemy assets on the front line. And so there's more talking to the AI drones, but nonetheless, drones are being a part of, are being a major part of war right now. The Isaiah 54:16 is talking about the missiles. But in a broad sense, not pertaining to that scripture, but just in a broad sense of war, in a scale of war, it's Yehovah Shemel Shai that's controlling it. And just like he put the spirit on the nuclear physicists to create the missiles, he put the spirit on Babylon, these different modern day military scientists to make AI powered drones and things. And so Russia's targeting those. Um, and, now I have one more. Um, one more piece of information. Um, Let me get a date on these. It says Iran recently launched a series of retaliatory drone and missile strikes against U.S. military facilities in Jordan and Kuwait following heavy U.S. airstrikes on Iranian targets. Let me pull this article. This is from 4 days ago. Um, the U.S. military says it has completed a heavy wave of strikes against Iran in retaliation for Tuesday's attempted ballistic missile attacks on American forces. Um, and so, you get into Iran versus Babylon. So Iran was fighting against the small hats. Now America's drawn into that. They sending blows to another. Then again, Ukraine hitting Iran. Russia hitting American drone forces. China and North Korea and Iran backing Russia against Ukraine. And so Yehovah Shai is gathering the nations to the valley of Yehoshaphat in the so-called Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, to judge these heathen, really for what they did to us Israelites, so-called black, so-called Hispanic, so-called Native Americans, slavery. But the Lord is bringing the prophecies to come to pass. And these we're also bringing out first-hand accounts, not just what we see, but getting accounts from retired military generals, military admirals. So read this one. Iran and the U.S. have engaged in escalating strikes and countering strikes since a ceasefire in April, aimed at pausing the months-long war fell apart in June. So Babylon and Iran been at war. Small hats in Iran. Russia and Ukraine. And so So we're in these times. The third woe cometh quickly. And so all the nations are getting involved. And we're gonna see the rest of them as well. Turkey, which is Gomer, is doing its job. Backing with Russia. Gog Magog, Ezekiel 38. And so Babylon don't is really it's bringing its troops to destruction. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. It's good to say, and these dead bodies that they send in the draft to the Saudi Arabian desert, the land barren and desolate, they're going to become a great stink. Let's read this. Let's read the brother's precepts. Binary Australia 144, Joel chapter 3 verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, This is what we're saying among the heathen. Because this message is for you. Because we're prophets not only to galvanize and um, to gather the elect through the word, be the servants of our power, Yehovah Shah, to gather the elect through the word. We're also prophesying against the heathen. Um, and as in past times, we were called seers. So we had visions, we could tell the future. And we prophesied war, evil, and pestilence. And kings would go to prophets concerning war. So if y'all want to really find out what's going to happen to you in a war, well, we're going to tell you. And this is exactly what's coming to pass. And you really don't have no say in the matter. Because it's Yehovah Shah stirring you heathen up. And we're hastening the day when y'all shoot their missiles on America. Like you're reading, Joel chapter 3, verse 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. And so y'all are preparing war. Getting ready, NATO getting ready for a war with Russia. NATO getting ready for the lack of American help. Because Trump is being a unruly leader and really absent and demon. But that's only to lead up to the prophecy of Revelation 17 and 16, where the beast, the revised Roman Empire, through the seven heads, NATO, the 10 horns, EU, going to start hating America the whore and shooting missiles on her to enter up eating with flesh and burn with fire. So all the Germany's preparing for war. And they've been saying this. All the nations are preparing for war. And that's why there's a nuclear arms race and the nuclear bunker business is booming. And you can clearly see that Iran is not trying to acquire nuclear power for nothing. They're doing it for war. Now, these nations do have their own agendas of continuing and forwarding their people. But the focus is war, because war is coming. And the American people that have trusted in the virgin daughter of Babylon, and she's a virgin, Isaiah 47, because she's never been hit on his land by military strike or force, which has caused the American people to have a false sense of comfort, that you're going to get drafted and it's going to catch you off guard. And you're the ones who have not been preparing for war. The weak, effeminate generation of men, and then you women are going to be thrown into it as well. Which will be a wonderful sight to see. Shalom Malak Bob White, Yehovah Shemel Shah Barakatah, Shalom Malak, Shalom. Reading on Joel chapter 3, verse 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. So y'all better start preparing, and you are preparing. Getting the troops assembled, the war tactics, the generals, the protocol for the people, getting ready for the economic and famine outcomes of war, making your alliances, cutting off the bad allies and adversaries. Wake up the mighty men, Russia, Gog, Magog, the bear, Revelation 13 and 2. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. And so where are the armies being amassed? To the so-called Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, the Levant, the Valley of Yehoshaphat. That's why the Lord, Yehovah Hashem, Yehoshaphat, is causing the nations to stirring up in the east. It's not like you have wars sporadically over the world. In America, it's gonna be civil war, but it's pursuing and race wars, but it's pursuing to the great battling of the third woe of World War III before it goes nuclear. It's gonna be in the east, the so-called Middle East. Verse 10, Joel chapter 3, verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. So the plowshares and the swords and the pruning hooks and the spears. Plowshares and pruning hooks are instruments of farming. A plowshare is the sharp leading metal blade of a farm plow that cuts the bottom of a soil furrow and lifts the earth towards the moldboard. And it even says it here, it is also famously known from the biblical phrase swords and the plowshares. Now it's plowshares and the swords, because it says here symbolizing peace, which that's going to be in the kingdom, pursuant to Micah 4, Isaiah 2. But this one is plowshares and the sword, symbolizing what? War. The brother put it up. Bayan Yasharola. Ecclesiastes 3 and 1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And you got to skip to verse 8 for the point. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. So we're in a time of the nations beating their plowshares and their swords. A time of war. And if you sharpen a plowshare and a pruning hook, you can use it for war. I'll get a pruning hook as well. Well, actually, I need to get pictures. So these are plowshares. This is a pretty good description. You can see how it becomes a sword. Here's a pruning hook. See how it looks like a spear? There's a spurt. A pruning hook is a curved sickle-shaped hand tool with a sharp inner blade and a short or long handle, used in agriculture and gardening to trim tree branches, clear high hedges, and harvest or prune vines. Let me see if I can find this. It says, ancient civilizations, which the Google didn't understand my question right, but it answered it anyways. It says, ancient civilizations, I gotta skip what they said, they turned farming tools into weapons during desperate times. Because they're only remembering Micah 4 and Isaiah 2. They're not making mention of Joel 3. but then they mentioned it here. Um, um, says emergency mobilization when an unexpected war broke out. Ancient farmers grabbed heavy iron plow tips and curved pruning knives to use as crude hand weapons if they had no proper military gear. Um, um, remember Elder Pastor said something about Moab and Ammon doing that. I haven't actually looked into it, so I want to see if I could find something now. Um, yeah, I have to do more research on that. But I was hoping I could find something. Um, but going back to Joel 3, Joel chapter 3, and verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords, and in your pruning hooks into spears. And so, what that doesn't literally mean that all the farmers of these nations are gonna use their farming tools for weapons, although that's very likely could happen. Um, it means that the nations are not pushing agriculture and farming; they're pushing war. So they're becoming war-minded, as it said, "Prepare war," in a verse above it. Um, and so the nations um, are preparing for war. And so, because that's the time that we're in. So, again, the nations are building up their military arsenal. They're putting more of their budget into the military, um, and that's going to bring forth also a disruption in the agriculture, in the supply chain, and famine's going to come. World War III in the Middle East can impact famine here in Babylon, and that's something that we've seen on a low scale with the American-Iran conflict. Um, and then also nuclear winter after the second death of nuclear destruction. Um, nuclear winter, what is known as the after effects of nuclear missiles, that causes famine as well. So when you looked in the chariot, Yahweh Shah one word, a number. Revelation 8 also speaks about the wormwood and the waters becoming bitter, where the men died because they drank the waters after the nuclear destruction. Because wormwood means it's bitterness and contamination, and wormwood is bitter. I drink the herb wormwood, and that stuff is bitter. I was telling the brother, that stuff is bitter. Um, but this is what I'm looking for. Second Ezra chapter 16 and verse 34. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine. And so war and famine is coming. This is what our Lord Yahweh Shah spake about Matthew 24. Wars, rumors of wars, famines. It also mentioned pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. So the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. One of my favorite scriptures is Zephaniah 1 and 14. The great day of the Lord Yahweh Shah is near, It is near and hasteth greatly. We're back to Joel chapter 3, in verse 10. Be your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And how are the weak saying they're strong? Through the nuclear missile. Isaiah 14 speaks about talking against America, or thou become weak as we, or thou liken unto us. Because the nations see America as weak now after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of the Second World War. So, and then Russia's backing them up, and they got nuclear missiles. So now, again, Russia, Gog, Magog being a guard to the weaker nations. Now America's looking at as weak, and the weak are saying they're strong. So they got nuclear missiles, and they're able to stand up to America, the bully, the hammer of the earth. Jeremiah 50:23. How is the hammer of the earth cut asunder? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? And so the weak are saying they're strong. And again, Iran is not getting looking for nuclear power for no peaceful purpose. They may have a proud intention to use it for peace in the end, but they're really doing it, we know, for nuclear purposes. And that is why Trump is losing it over Iran. That's one of the reasons. And so the nuclear arms race. It's not just Russia and America since the Cold War with nuclear weapons. There's India, Pakistan, Britain, obviously China, North Korea. But let me look something up. And when you really get into the prophecies, you can clearly see that nuclear missiles are in the Bible. And it is 100% obvious, just like the current war prophecies of the armies being amassed to the so-called Middle East are happening. They're obvious, which is the Babylon the Great, the U.S., Russia, China, France, India, the U.K., the Mother of Babylon, the Small Hats in North Korea are the only countries known to have operational ICBMs. Pakistan is the only, so I mentioned Pakistan. Pakistan is the only nuclear armed country that does not possess ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, which is why in 2 Ezra 16 and 13 it says, the arrow shall be shot to the ends of the world. In Jeremiah 50 and 16, I think it is, says the hindermost of the nations, because America is all the way at the hindermost part of the earth, the uttermost part of the earth, the fourth part of the earth in Revelation 6, which is talking to the Western Hemisphere across the Atlantic Ocean. So all these countries are on the east, and they're going to shoot their missiles. I don't have a map up, but I'm using the thing. And they're going to shoot their missiles across between continents. Joel 2 says they're going to leap, because they're going to leap continents. They're going to leap from the silo to the destination and make it a desolate wilderness. Before them shall be the Garden of Eden, roughly paraphrasing. Behind them shall be a desolate wilderness. And everyone that's not the elect here in America is going to be burnt up. And that is the judgment of the Lord Yehovah Shemel for their wickedness. Because all these people are wicked just like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why the prophecies say Babylon shall be destroyed as Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, Joel 3 and 10 again, be your plowshares and the swords and your pruning hooks and the spears. let the weak say I'm strong. So the weak are saying they're strong. Not all these countries on the list have always been looked at as strong, but they got nuclear missiles, and we're going to keep seeing the nations gathering ICBMs with multiple warheads. And so I wanted to go into Ezekiel 38. I'm going to go through it quickly. Ezekiel 38:1, and the word of the Lord Yahweh came, and this is from Bai Nesharallah, the word of Malak from posting these. Definitely could needed that, and could use that in this lesson because I brought out a lot of information. And so it's like the priest says it right here. Ezekiel 38:1, and the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Now we're going to the blue letter. Now the scriptures speak about Gog, Magog, the Medes, talking about Russia. Now Edomite will say, or 2/3 will say, oh, it's talking about Japhet. No, it's talking about the Edomites that took over the Japhetic lands and are there in those lands to fulfill prophecy, where the Japhites are nowhere to be found in power. They're the Medes that were part of the Medo-Persian Empire with Darius the Mede and Xerxes. They ain't up in that land ruling like they was, because we're not in the second beast anymore. We're in the revival of the fourth beast, which is Rome, through the little horn, America, after the deadly wound of the beast was healed in the Renaissance period, after Rome fell. And Esau has rebuilt Rome and reconquered the earth. Brought the Greco-Roman Empire back. Revelation 20, as the brother put up. Which I should really get that as well, but and the Japhites, the Polynesians, they don't have nuclear weapons. They're really kind of like an extra of the movie right now. Not to say that they can't, but they are not the main sword that, if you will, that Yahweh Bashmiel Shah is using to destroy Babylon. And also the ancient Medes didn't destroy Babylon as Sodom and Gomorrah, showing it was future prophecy, Isaiah 13:17 to that on down. But Ezekiel 38 and 2, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Now I had to do this. And Apostle Tahar did this, and it wowed me. Going into the Hebrew, where it says the chief prince. Now, if you brothers have been getting into your Hebrew, as we all should, that's Ra'ash for chief, Ra-a-sha, Ra'ash. Like in Genesis, when it says in the beginnings, it means, it reads Bara'ashiath, meaning in the headings, or in the beginnings. Ra'ash is the chief, like in the headings, the head, the chief. Then, prince, here it says Nashayah, but then we also know another word for prince is Shar, as pursuing the name of Israel is Yasharallah, Yah, he Shar, Prince, all the power. Um, and so if you put in that word for just getting into it, what the other apostles hard found this out first. Chief, you know, the Hebrew, Chief Ra'ash, Prince Shor, that's Ra'ash. Put it together, the Chief Prince Ra'ash Shor, and that spells out Russia. So Russia is the Chief Prince, the Ra'ash Shor, which I thought that was heavy in the spirit. But nonetheless, back to Ezekiel 38, and 3, and say, thus saith the Lord, Yehovah Shemel power, behold, I'm against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back. So the Lord, Yehovah Shemel is turning Russia back since the Soviet Union, since Stalin, the communist, all that thing. When Russia was a terror in the earth of nuclear destruction in the Cold War, and so the bear would have to go into hibernation. Russia's the bear, pursuant to Revelation 13:2, and then the Lord Yehovah Shemel would bring Russia back. And so, one time I was getting in an argument of prophecy, and the opposing, and it was just I was just talking shit with my grandpa, because he gets into the Bible, but he said we don't know the prophecies, and it didn't hit me then, but it hit me later. Because sometimes you think of the greatest points of the argument later, where it's like Russia wasn't supposed, like they'll say they survived the Cold War. They survived Russia so that a nuclear threat isn't fear to them, or they can just keep pushing on from one. Well, the Lord Yehovah Shemel said that he would turn Gog and Magog, turn Russia back. So Russia's coming back this time. It wasn't supposed to be last time. So for any person in that spirit thinking that because America has prevailed, if you will, through nuclear scares, and that they can just keep pushing on and keep on keeping on, and pushing on, and America is deceived and mistaken, because Yehovah Shemel had made it where Russia was not going to shoot the missiles that time. They just had to be a terror to fulfill Ezekiel 38. So that when the Lord Yehovah Shemel turned them back with hooks in their jaws in the third woe, that World War III, that's when they would handle business. That's when the nukes are going to fly. So reading again, Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 4, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. So the Lord is throwing hooks into Putin. They're trying to get the Soviet lands back. They got the greatest nuclear arsenal. If you can't see it, then you can't see it. In all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor. And back in the ancient times, you had battles with literally horses and horsemen in armor, and chariots. That's where chariots comes from, because horses and chariots and their rider Pharaoh and his chariots. Now, and then the chariots of Israel, our chariots are the so-called UFO. That's our militaries in the heavens, and it's going to be our salvation. Yehovah Shemel Ratazah, willing world, the elect. With modern day armor and horses and horsemen and chariots for the heathen, or guns, tanks, helicopters, even drones, and so on. Missiles. Really, the missiles is where we get to the swords. So it says, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords and nuclear missiles. Persia, Iran, 1935, Reza Shah Pahlavi changed the name from Persia to Iran. So we know who that is. The Carmanians, Secondary 15. You had a region in Iran called province called Kerman, showing you that's talking about Iran and future prophecy. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, which is Turkey. I'm on a getting too late with this lesson. Um, but if I pulled up a map, you would see Gomer is Turkey, and they're a part of NATO. But the whole time they've been in NATO, they've just been really with Russia, getting the Russian nuclear power plants. The Turkish president said him and Putin were the only two real world leaders. Uh, um, and so we're seeing Turkey join more with Russia every day. Gomer and all his bands, and I did a lesson on it not too long ago. The House of Togorma of the North Quarters and all his bands, and many people with thee. And then to the point, we'll have to read verse 7 as well. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. And so Russia is going to be a guard to the weaker nations. And again, we read, let the weak say they are strong. Verse 10, going to skip to make some points. Thus said the Lord, Yehovah shall power. It shall also come to pass that at the same time things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. That evil thought is to send them bombs. And this could be Putin. Showing you what? The king's heart, the king's mind, the Hebrew word for heart is la, which is the mind. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yehovah Shah. And as the rivers of water, he turneth the whithersoever he will. So the Lord is going to put into the mind of the king of Gog, the evil thought. Showing you it's the Lord controlling the nuclear destruction. And now, verse 11, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. Now, what does it mean, unwalled villages? It means that a wall is like a defense, because there's going to be no nuclear defense system. So it's as if America and the small hats, which is the land of unwalled villages in this prophecy, is as if they are unwalled, because the nuclear defense systems are not going to work. Joel 2 says, when a sword shall come upon the missiles, they shall not be wounded. They shall not break their rank. The arrow shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Because the missiles are going to hit. And so you got the Golden Dome. Trump was working on, or you got the Iron Dome. Trump, I think he said, was working on the Golden Dome. So the missile defense systems will be in place, but they're going to be, as prophecy says, unwalled villages. Because they're going to be as, though there weren't even any nuclear defense systems. And so, again, like it says in Joel 2, before them it shall be as the Garden of Eden. Behind them it shall be a desolate wilderness. Yeah, nothing shall escape them. So it's going to be all, whatever remnant of life is left. People taking MOTBs, the microchip, the mark of the beast, the microchips, and there's still living vegetation in America and in the small hats, whatever is left of that, and then all that is going to be destroyed in 1 hour, and that's the day of our salvation. Yehovah Shemashah one, Martazah, we're of the elect. So all the prophecies we're reading about, and I just went into a list of current events that show prophecies coming to pass. It leads up to our salvation, the Lord Yehovah coming back. So we're almost there. Our work is really cut out for us as prophets of Yehovah Shah. We must keep pushing, praying, and keeping the faith. So with that, hope that's edifying. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakokodash. Yahweh is the true name of the Heavenly Father, it's the Hebrew. Yahweh Shai is the true name, and only God's Son. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone over well, and shalom to the elect, and shalom to the Akim on the common board, to water for the precepts. Definitely much needed. Shalom.